What is going on, everybody? So I am back today to talk about another film that was nominated for Best International Film at the Academy Awards. And this weekend, unfortunately, I got like a stomach flu and was miserably sick. And so I decided that the best way to treat feeling miserably sick is to watch a movie that was going to make me feel miserable emotionally. I was really excited to see this, though. I know A24 produced it. Had a really limited run as far as screenings went when this came out. And I've noticed this is a trend with A24, and I hope that they clean this up in the near future, because there's been so many incredible movies, even after Sun, that have just gotten such limited run releases. It's like, put some trust in your films. Like, After Sun just got this amazing reception in the film community, and people will go watch your movies if you release them in theaters, especially if you give them wider releases. I hope to see this year with A24 that they push it a little bit more. But I was really excited to watch this movie, and I look forward to discussing it today. And the film I'm going to be talking about is Close. Close is directed by Lukas Dhont. 13-year-olds Leo and Remy have always been incredibly close, but they are drift apart after the intimacy of their relationship is questioned by schoolmates. When tragedy strikes, one is forced to confront why he distanced himself from his closest friend. I was really excited to watch this movie because I knew absolutely nothing about it, other than I saw a brief trailer for the movie. It looked beautifully shot, produced by A24, and I normally get excited for films they produce because they seem to put their money in quality projects, and I loved this movie. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it is definitely a gut punch when you watch this film. And I noticed pretty polarizing reviews from people that watch the film, and I'll be interested to talk about that in the review today. So obviously, as the film states, you have these two young friends who they're 13 years old, and it's shown from the beginning of the film that with the way they look at each other and the connection that they have, that there may end up being something more than friendship between these two kids. They have a bond together that they love each other, and whether that be a friendly love or what would end up being a romantic connection, you can just see it kind of blossom through them. And they both have really incredible family lives. The one young boy, Remy, lives at home with his mom and dad. Both of them seem to be very free-spirited and caring and loving people that just want the best for their child. And same with Leo's family, where you see them, they work on this farm together where they take care of what are seemingly different varieties of plants, and he helps them pick the plants and package them all up and ship them out. And the two of them start going to school together for the new semester at school. And while they're there, they start getting picked on, and they get called homophobic slurs multiple times as they go to school, and they're being judged by their peers, constantly telling them, oh, are you gay? Are you in a relationship with each other? And you can tell Leo, who from the beginning of the film seems to, from the way that the camera is framed and the way that he looks at his friend Remy, has what seems to be more of like a romantic longing for him, or like something blossoming, because when you're a teenager, understanding your feelings or where you're at emotionally is so difficult, and even coming to terms with sexual identity at that age can be so conflicting. And we see it in the younger and younger generations now, with more accessibility to understanding that being who you are as a person, understanding your sexual orientation, your gender identity, these things are very complex, where for years society is like, oh, being cis and straight is the only thing society can accept. And now people are understanding that like more things exist. Fluidity is something that exists. And it's a beautiful thing that education exists out there, and that people can, come to an understanding of themselves. But the society we live in is still so hateful and bigoted, and just treats people like absolute shit for just wanting to be themselves. And you see that through the most small of interactions in this film. And I think that's what makes it hit so hard, is because not everything is so overblown. Sometimes it's a passing glance or a small slur said towards someone that can be hugely impactful. And we see in Leo's character that there's this idea of masculinity embedded in him because of the other people that he comes into contact with in the school. And because of that, he starts distancing himself from his closest friend because he feels like he's going to be bucketed into this thing that may truly be a part of who he is as a person, but he has not fully come to understand. And because of the judgment judgments of the outside world. He feels that he has to fit into some sort of bucket in order to fit in. And what I loved about this movie is that it really shows through a really fascinating idea, which is like, these families are the most accepting, loving, caring groups of people that you could possibly imagine that are taking care of their kids. And outside of this scope of the school, which you could even look at on the bigger picture of the world as a whole, when you're separated from that and you're with people who are caring and accepting and loving, that you can live the lifestyle you want with no judgment. You don't have to worry what other people think, because the people who love you no matter who you are. And once you get into that outside world where there's so much judgment and hatred, that you can just bring people down. And there was such a poignancy to that in the filmmaking in this. The cinematography is so nuanced in this film, where shots just hold on characters' facial expressions and emotions, where you just feel it. It's not through heavy expositional dialogue. And I want to talk a little bit about, there's a huge spoiler in the film that if you have not seen the movie, I don't really want to give away if you haven't seen it, but I do want to talk about it in the context of my review if you have seen it. So go ahead and just finish the review now. Come back and hear the rest of my thoughts later if you have not seen the movie, because I want to talk about this very specific point that is the turning point in the film that I feel like a lot of people have qualms with, and it's difficult for me to discuss without spoiling that. So at the halfway point in the movie, the character of Remy, we find out, has committed suicide, and it completely changes the trajectory of the film. The remaining back half of the movie is watching Leo sort of process what has happened, because his closest friend, who he turned his back on in this moment after they have a huge fight in the middle of the school, has taken his own life. And you can sort of see through quiet contemplation that he blames himself, and he tries to ignore it, and he tries to act like nothing's happened. But you have scenes where the family invites the mother and father of that young boy over to their house and try to cope with the fact that they've lost this child at such a young age. And there's implications early in the film. He goes into the bathroom at one point to take a shower, and his mother says, like, hey, don't lock the door. I don't like it when you lock the door in the house. Maybe alluding to the fact that he's had mental health issues in the past, and there's been previous issues where he struggled with his own identity, or struggled with just, you know, dealing with day-to-day life, to where he may have tried to self-harm before. And we don't know any of that information other through little context clues. And so what was the breaking point for him? Because seemingly his family life is wonderful, and the relationship that he has with Leo's family is also wonderful. And you watch this sort of slow decline. In the second half of this movie, I see a lot of people say, oh, they pulled the worst thing they could possibly pull, and they did something horrible by having this child take his own life. And that is the reality that people in the LGBTQ community suffer on a day-to-day basis. People take their lives consistently because they're being judged by the outside world. So are you saying that in film you can't show that lived experience? I feel like that's a really silly and stupid thing to ever put out into the world, because so many people do live this tragedy, and to see it in a way that felt so poignant and realized and realistic. There is no Hollywood schlock that exists in this movie. I forgot I was watching characters in a film about the first 20 minutes of this movie. This just felt like real people interacting with one another, and that to me is the best, most quality cinema that can exist, when I can completely strip myself away from the fact that this is a movie and that it feels like a lived reality. And it was just a really beautiful and harrowing experience, and I think that it will open the minds up to a lot of people of the LGBTQ experience, because it's never explicitly said whether these two characters are indeed members of that community, but the implications that exist for these two people and the judgments from the outside world in discovering who you are as a person and understanding your sexuality and understanding your gender identity is something that people go through on a day-to-day basis. And I think Lukas Dhont explores this really poignantly and beautifully in this film, and I hope that more people will check it out, because I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So have you seen Close? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was absolutely fantastic. One of my favorites of the year from last year. This definitely would have ranked high up on the list for my favorites in the Oscar category, right up there with The Quiet Girl for international film, but this would probably be in my top 5 or 6 of the year last year. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.